Hi, everybody. Welcome to Screen Less, Play More. I am Cynthia, the founder of screenlessplaymore.com. And I think a lot of parents have heard in the last couple of years about how easy it is for kids to accidentally find pornography and inappropriate content online. But a lot of us are really confused about how that happens because we don't accidentally find stuff when we're searching online. So we don't know how that's happening to kids. And a lot of parents are also really unsure about how to discuss pornography with their kids and at what age to start doing that. So I am so excited to talk to my guest today, who is Chris McKenna, and he is the founder and CEO of Protect Young Eyes, which is an organization that helps families, schools, and churches create safer digital spaces. And so he can hopefully answer a lot of those questions for us today. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Cynthia. Happy to be with you. Here we are using technology, having a great conversation.
Exactly. I mean, tech does a lot of wonderful things, but it's not always the best for little kids. So I am curious.
And let's be honest, for some of us as big kids too,
true.
has harm and help whether you're 4, 14, or 40. So this is good for all of us, but yeah.
I'm curious, what inspired you to start Protect Young Eyes?
Gosh, yeah, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I transitioned from a role in business. So I'm 12 years. I'm a CPA. I'm supposed to be an accountant. Right?
Okay.
So I was 12 years in business consulting. I worked at Ernst & Young and loved that job, but the Lord called me into ministry. So I left the business world and went into the local church. There I worked a lot with students. I also helped the church with a lot of finance and business related items. And I did that for 7 years. But the time frame I did that, Cynthia, is what's important. So I was there from 2009 to 2016. So in the evolution of sort of technology, you figure we get the iPhone in 2007. Mm-hmm. Kids don't really start carrying it around until about 2012 because that's the iPhone 5. That's what parents start handing down to their kids. I always think clearly, I had a whole box of Bibles and coats and hoodies that kids left at youth group, and nobody ever left me their iPhone. And so it became their prized possession. It was the thing that kids had and now valued, and they were ascribing the significance. And that's not their fault. I mean, every generation has the thing that is sort of the symbol, or it does something that is cool that they want other kids to see. This became the thing. And parents just were totally uninformed about what they were actually giving their kids, which was 100 million choices, 100 million opportunities. And I think about the words. I was just talking to another dad about this. So when you got an encyclopedia or you had a dictionary, you'd look up naughty words. You're like, ooh, hee, hee, hee. Like there's this curiosity that's just inherent and natural in kids. We love that about them. And we just put every encyclopedia in every book, in every dictionary, in every language, in every country, in every pocket of the kids. It just felt like a bad idea to me. So I started doing some research for my own families at the church, launched a closed Facebook group called Digital Kids. And 2015 then, I launched a website called Protect Young Eyes just to get information out there that was a little more evergreen that parents could access. And then churches and other places started saying, hey, we want our parents to hear this. And that kind of led to where we are today, which is an organization with people traveling the country and doing presentations, hundreds of them in Canada and Mexico and kind of North America, and a curriculum for classrooms and an on-demand course for parents, and really just trying to continue this conversation from something that really I never intended. That's the professional side. I was exposed to pornography as a young boy. That led to compulsive use as an adult, which led to all kinds of potential problems. I was able to break free from that through Christ and accountability and just all kinds of layers of help. And so the other aspect to this, Cynthia, which is really important, is here I was an adult with all these resources and tools around me, and a beautiful wife and father of 4 and all these things that you'd seemingly go, wow, he won't struggle. He'd be fine. And yet then we took that monster and we put it in kids' pockets and we just said, they won't struggle. They'll be fine. I mean, what were we doing?
Yeah, they can control themselves. No, they can't.
They can't. It's not their fault. Anytime a kid struggles online, I want our default thought to be that's not their fault.
Yeah.
I mean, this is on us. We've made this decision. We've decided to put porn and problems and predators and addictive algorithms. We have decided to put the world's most brilliant software engineers in kids' pockets, and we've expected them every single day to exert a level of self-control that you and I never had as children. It's not their fault.
Well, and like you said, I mean, I remember playing Mad Libs with my cousin, and we put in every single blank space bad words and just thought it was so hilarious.
So funny.
And,
giggle, 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 right? Yeah.
And so absolutely, like you're drawn to what's supposedly forbidden. And I remember being in first grade at a friend's house, and we stumbled upon her dad's stash of magazines of pornography. And we were like, what is this? And we looked at it, and then the mom walked in and caught us. But I was basically able to forget that for the rest of my life because it didn't follow me home. It just was a one-time thing. It was confusing.
Kind of a cloud that floated by. Yep.
Yeah. And it wasn't something that was constantly on my phone in my orbit. And that's why I just feel so bad for kids now, because they kind of can't escape it. And I'm just wondering, what do you think are the main ways that kids are stumbling upon inappropriate content these days? Is it just on the phone? What kinds of websites? How is it happening?
Well, and so here's what I really want parents to also understand is pornography gets all the press, and it should. It's evil, it's horrible, and it's destructive. But if all we do is worry about blocking the porn, then we've missed a massive amount of mature content that is horrible for our children. So here's the thing. You could go into any middle school, any public middle school, let's say 8th graders, and you could take all the 8th grade boys, for example, and if you were to stand in the back of the room and ask them a question so they don't feel like, they're going to get in trouble on the spot, and tell them to close their eyes and say, how many of you, raise your hands, how many of you have seen somebody killed or beheaded in a video online? And most of the time you'll get 10 to 20% of those boys raising their hands.
Wow.
So here's the thing, porn is horrible. This is not me talking about one doesn't diminish the other. What I'm saying is there is a whole range of mature ideas, mature images, adult content that ranges from violent to just, they don't understand. Like, how does a young person understand a complex conversation between two adults related to finance or divorce or a job? Like, there's just so many mature ideas and concepts out there that create confusion in young brains. Yes, we can block pornography. That's actually kind of the easiest thing to do.
Okay.
Because websites categorize themselves a certain way, filters are tuned a certain way, and you can get rid of most of that. What's really difficult and what is really damaging to young brains is the rest of the stuff that's hard to categorize.
Okay.
It's mixed content. So YouTube is mixed content. And even on its restricted mode, even when you put on the toggles and filters for get rid of that which is adult, what is appropriate to a 13-year-old? You're asking YouTube to decide what is appropriate for a 13-year-old.
Right.
And I think we have parents that completely underestimated. It's the kind of stuff where you have 13-year-olds that are seeing, yes, pornography, but what about third graders who come into class and who in the back of the class moan? And I hear this from teachers all the time. Like, where did they hear that? Like, it wasn't pornographic, but it was somebody kind of mimicking something and being sort of gross. And, it wasn't porn, but it was somebody doing something in a video. And this kid now comes to class and he or she is moaning as if they're turned on or something. Like, does a third grader even understand what they're doing? No, but that's not their fault. Why? Because young brains do what they see.
Right.
This is how they process the world. And so I think that's, we are going to unpack some very specific and tactical things that parents can do about the porn issue. But if that's all we do, we've missed a wide range of content that is just too much too soon for young brains. It's called ahead of schedule. You talk to those who work with young people. We as young humans receive information and process information. Like, think of your brain like a bunch of files in a cabinet. And adults talk to you and teach you and educate you on certain things. Every time that happens, you create an empty file that then you can put information in. You know how to categorize it. And when you get information ahead of schedule that you don't have a file for it yet, you don't know where to put it. So it kind of gets messy, and like you put it in a folder, kind of what you think it is. And that creates some anxiety, creates some chaos because it's not in the right spot. You don't have any context for it. You don't have any boundaries around what it is or isn't or how to understand it. So that's what I mean by too much too soon. Ahead of schedule, we have to be really careful about that content too.
That really makes sense, because I had an experience last week. I was going to talk to Sarah Gallagher Trombley, who used to be a Snapchat executive. And so I made a fake Snapchat account and pretended like I was 15. And I hadn't been on Snapchat in years. I thought it was just funny filters. And I started looking through the like spotlight feature, which is kind of like TikTok, and it just feeds you
it's
videos.
the TikTok, yep.
And it very, very quickly got really weird and really erotic, like within 10 minutes. And it's thinking that I'm 15 years old. And I can understand what you're saying about, like, it wasn't porn. Nobody was naked, but it was so much innuendo. It was so much just stuff that these kids would not understand, that would make them feel uneasy. I mean, it was making me feel really uneasy. It was very confusing and strange. And I could categorize it as a 46-year-old. And I was even saying, like, this is weird. What are they showing me? And it was a lot of cussing. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, where it was like, it was getting pretty close to pornographic. But again, if somebody made you categorize it, you're like, well, they were all completely clothed. So I could understand how there's just a huge swath of information that's not pornographic, but is still just incredibly confusing to kids. And especially if they're just seeing it constantly on their phone or their iPad or whatever.
So I'll say it again. Pornography is one of the easier things to control.
Yeah.
It still slips through. It's not foolproof. No filter is foolproof. No app, any app that has content is going to have pornography that you can find in some way. But I just think we as parents completely underestimate everything else and have dropped our kids inside of digital swimming pools that are full of all kinds of other information. In Michigan, we eat a lot of soup, especially coming up on the fall here, right? So I talk about it in terms of like a digital soup. When you put like vegetables and meats and spices kind of all together, there's a soaking and sort of a marinating process, and the vegetables and the meats kind of pick up different spices in different ways, and it'll all be different depending on the piece that you pick up and eat. And that's like each one of our kids. And the thing I say is, I don't know, when I drop a kid into a digital pool, I don't know which of them is going to become hooked. I don't know which one is going to see porn. I don't know which one is going to run into violence. I don't know which one is going to be depressed. I don't know which one is going to waste half of their night stuck on some kind of video. But like, I just asked the logical question, why are we so willing to find out? Maybe think of it this way. If only 10% of TikTok or Snapchat, like of all the news that's out there, if only 10% of it was true, would that still be too much for you to drop your kid inside of it? I think we have to sometimes just step back and ask pretty logical questions, because the fade to yes and the fade to some of these places and the fade to every kid having Snapchat and so I think you kind of just step back and ask, if you look at all the news, and one of the things that I do is I have my Google alerts set up. I get an email every night, Cynthia, where I've set up Google to scan all the news that's out there and to send me a summary of news related to certain keywords.
Okay.
So I have it send me a summary of news related to Snapchat, related to Instagram, and related to YouTube. And the summary that I get most nights related to Snapchat is full of articles about predators and others who are reaching out to kids, because Snapchat is not where a lot of predatory or pornographic conversations start, but it's the destination because it's disappearing. So it may start in Instagram, it may start in YouTube, so Snapchat isn't the trailhead. Snapchat is the destination. The trailhead is something else, Roblox, right? Because that's where kids are. And then the destination is, hey, let's go to Snap or let's go to iMessage, right? And in other places. So the articles, of course, news is essential, is very sensational, wants us to click on it too. But that's why I say, if only 10% of those articles were true.
Yeah, it's still not good.
If 10% of the playgrounds that you dropped your kids off at had children who bumped into predators, who had somebody showing them child sexual abuse material, like take 10% of the playgrounds around Denver or Grand Rapids or whatever, wouldn't you still kind of go, I'm not taking my kid to any playground? Because,
or at the very least, like, I'm going to stand next to them the entire time.
Exactly. Right. And sometimes for me to make sense of a digital situation, I have to like step back and make it analog and go, what the heck are we doing? And I think this is one of those. So,
well, I saw on your Instagram, and I love this, where you said that at Protect Young Eyes, you guys have a saying called 10 conversations before 10.
10
And
before 10. Yeah.
I just think that's so interesting, and it's such a cool way to do it, that you say if they're not rolling their eyes, you're not talking about it enough. And so can you kind of explain how people might be surprised at what would qualify as a quote unquote porn talk? Like it doesn't have to be super in depth or actually pornographic itself, the actual talk, but what are just some of the quick ways we can say things to our kids just here and there throughout the day or throughout the years?
Yeah, so think of drips instead of drownings. Think of drips instead of dousings. Like it's just little digital drips. That's what we're looking for. And those drips don't even have to have the word porn in them at all. You could be pulling up, it's back to school time. You'll be listening to this probably different times. But like for us in Michigan right now, as we're talking, Cynthia, it's kind of back to school time.
Mm-hmm.
You could be pulling up to the drop-off line. You turn on the radio, you look at your kid and go, you know what? You're going to have a lot of screens in front of you this next year. It could be a screen related to school. It could be a screen that a friend showed you, whatever it is. I just want you to know, if you see something that kind of makes you go, whoa, and you kind of know that little funny feeling that you just go, that's not right. That's weird. I have no idea what that is. If any of those thoughts go through your brain, I just want you to go, I'm going to tell someone, and you're going to tell me. And you know what's going to happen? I am going to say thank you. I will never be mad at you, and there is no problem with that. Ever. That is my promise to you. Ever. Like, turn up the radio and keep driving.
Yeah.
That's a porn talk.
It's as quick as that.
That's all it is. They don't, it's not a PowerPoint. They don't need to clap when you're done. It doesn't, that's a porn talk. I had a mom come up to me after our presentation. We do a lot of talks in front of parents and educators. And I had a mom come up and she said, you know, Chris, I listened to what you said, and this is what happened. And she told me the story. She was in the kitchen. She was stirring soup. There we go, soup again. And her kids, she had 3 kids. They were in the kitchen. One of them happened to be a daughter who was around age 12. And I don't even think she was looking at them. I can't remember exactly the details, but the story was generally she was stirring soup and just kind of said out loud in the kitchen, hey, kind of the same things. I just want you guys to know if you see anything or experience anything that you can always come to me. You know, as your mom, I am not going to freak out. That's something else we say. Just don't freak out, don't freak out, don't freak out. And sometimes as a parent, you have to say that out loud to your kids to make you accountable for not doing that, because we have limbic systems too as parents, and we sometimes get emotional before we get logical. So say it. Tell you, I'm not going to freak out, guys, anything at all. And that was it. She just kept stirring soup. She didn't get any acknowledgement. She didn't know if they had taken notes or anything, right? It's just, that's what she did.
Yeah.
And it was a couple weeks later, she was putting her daughter to bed, and I think it's a great time. I think bedtime is a fabulous time. Car time, mealtime, bedtime, these are great kind of captive attention times with your kids. They're often a little more tired, maybe a little more vulnerable, a little more willing to share things. But like in that moment of saying goodnight to her daughter, daughter said, hey, Mom, you said I could tell you anything. And I want to tell you something. And she had seen something on a Chromebook that really bothered her, and it led to a great conversation. All because Mom was stirring soup and invited her kids to tell her anything. Like, that's a porn talk. So I think we overanalyze, we blow it up into something, and we freeze instead of speak. I don't want 10 before 10 to feel like some legalistic requirement. It's not putting your kid in a chair in the kitchen and going porn, and like saying it 10 times. There's not some minimum. Like if you only get to 8, it's not as though you failed and now your kid is going to have problems with porn. The point is to quantify it and to just say to parents, listen, don't overanalyze this. Like, don't overthink this. For all the things that you know are important in your kids' lives. In the same way that an algorithm gets their attention by doing things over and over and over again, be a parental algorithm to your kids for the things that matter. And it's making sure they know that your door of share is always open. It is always open. 2 p.m., 2 a.m. And that's a porn talk.
I think that's a really great point, that you can talk to me. I'm not going to get mad, because as they get older and get deeper into this, I've heard these terrible horror stories of kids that were extorted, maybe because they sent a naked picture or something. And then, there was a specific one where he was told, I'm going to send this to the newspaper. I'm going to ruin your dad's career. And so this 17-year-old killed himself because he just thought, oh no, this is going to ruin
It's happened
everything.
hundreds of times.
And
Yep.
so we want kids to know, yes, this is serious, but if you get into some sort of trouble, tell me. I'm not going to get mad, because at least we as parents can explain to them, like, no, the newspaper would never take that photo. They would never, put that in their newspaper. This person's just trying to scare you. Like, we can talk them off the ledge and let them understand why this isn't as big of a deal as this person is trying to make you think it is, because they are threatening you, and it's not worth you harming yourself or killing yourself. We're an open door.
Yeah, and that's not just a little kid thing too, just to make sure that parents and, even fathers, we have a lot of moms who engage in these conversations. I call them the chief technology officer moms. There's a lot of those who maybe are even listening to this, but man, do we need more fathers engaging in this conversation and making sure their kids know what's expected and that door is open to them too. And I'll sometimes say, if I got dads in the room that are with their wives at some presentation or something, I'll say, dads, you've got a huge responsibility here too. It's not just on mom to have these conversations, and especially for like teen sons. The things we're talking about are good for 7-year-olds and 17-year-olds. So, you sit down with your teen son and you say, hey, listen, dude, I love you to pieces, and here's what's something you need to promise me. I'm going to say something a little offensive, but we've been talking about porn, so here we go. I'll say it here on the podcast. You say to your son, dude, don't ever send a picture of your penis to somebody else. Like, get his attention and just say things to make him kind of go, whoa, okay, yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah.
And activate that conversation by kind of joking, not joking about, but just be real direct and succinct. Tell him what's up. Tell him what he needs to do when. Because in the middle of the night, in the middle of crisis, when cortisol is high, this is when the bad actors get our amazing young people, is when that part of the brain is telling them they're going to get in trouble, your life is over, and there's no logic in their next step, which sometimes leads to death by suicide. So we've got to press through that with practice in the frontal cortex that overcomes that cortisol, so they know exactly what to do, like free throws, like swinging a bat, like anything that we want them to become muscle memory. We want it to become cortical memory, that logic memory that overrides the emotions in the heat of the moment. And that only happens if we have those conversations.
Yeah. No, I think might as well just be very plain about it, of like, here's what I expect from you. And here's, because if they go online, they're going to start thinking that this is the norm. And especially if they're seeing friends at school sexting and whatever, but then they'll realize, oh, wait, no, my dad specifically said, don't do this. And so I have a question for you. If you are having a talk with your teenager, especially, let's say it's your son, you're talking about puberty, you're talking about all these changes and stuff, I'm wondering if you think this is like an okay alternative to porn, or if this is a terrible idea, and why. What if you're saying, there's a lot of stuff about pornography that's not great. Not only is it addictive, but especially these days, it's very violent. It's completely different than what you would want to have in a regular relationship in real life. You explain to them, these are actors. This is not real life. But you're going through all of that. But you acknowledge, like, okay, we don't live in a cave. You're a 13-year-old boy. You're a 15-year-old boy, or whatever. What if you said, like, okay, I understand you might want to look at some sexy pictures. Like, here's a couple of editions of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Here's the Victoria's Secret catalog. Just please don't go online. Please stay away from all this stuff online that could be really problematic. Like, is that a good alternative that's kind of quote unquote safer and analog? Or like, what might be is there a flaw in that, that possible way of going?
I'll go back to something that I said earlier on, and that is, when we think about the world that our kids live in today, there's two things that I guess I'll try to play on to answer your question. So, out of the gate, that's a horrible idea, and here's why.
Okay.
We live in a world where, as parents, no matter what you've done, you do not control all the digital doorways that are open to our children. You can't. They're everywhere, whether it's in your home, back doors, you understand? I mean, Cynthia, right now, I can get to Pornhub through the Bible app, like right now.
Wow.
Like the back door ways. I could have all the screen time controls on my phone that I want, on my Apple phone here. I could have filter adult content, and I could still get to Pornhub. So like, you don't control it all. Your friends of your kids don't often have, you don't know all the things that they're showing them. It could be on some unsecure. So the digital doorways are everywhere. So like that's a reality. The other thing is if meth is bad for you, is a little bit okay for you. If anthrax kills you, is a little bit that doesn't quite kill you, it puts you in the hospital. Okay. Like there's a slope here that just doesn't stop at looking at swimsuit issue. I mean, you're a 13 or 14-year-old. Okay. Everything about your brain, when you understand childhood development and the three functional areas of the brain, reptilian, limbic, and neocortex, everything about being 13 is limbic, right? It's everything about emotions and fear and anxiety and stress and arousal. That's everything that's going on in their brain right now. They feel. And so what are they going to do when they look at that? They feel it. What are they going to want? More, because there's high reward sensitivity and high social sensitivity at that age. And so just like you're not satisfied with this, now I need more. There's a slope here. That's not the way that we learn respect. That's not the way that we learn self-control. That's not the way that we don't learn how to objectify. That's not, it's all the same path. It's just one's a little closer to the start of the path and one's a little bit closer to the toxic end of the path. It's the same path.
That makes sense. So that would be like me handing them the gateway drug.
I think so. I think so. That's a conservative stance and everyone's going to agree with, but I don't see a lot of young people that just are satisfied with that. Like it's that, again, we're asking them to exert a level of self-control then that we've never had. It'd be one thing in the 1980s in an analog world where the distance between me and horrible things or toxic things was physically far away or relationally far away. There was a pretty big distance in my childhood between where I was and the things that could do me great harm. I either had an elaborate plan or a whole lot of friends in the wrong places that would need to be true in order for me to get to those things.
Got it.
So what we have now is a thin space between every child in 2025 and egregious harm to those children. Every child lives in a very thin space of distance between their current reality and those types of things. And so I think if you asked me this question in 1985 and I lived out in the country in Bath, Michigan, like I did then, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, the chances, what's going to happen? Am I going to try to look at fuzzy Cinemax as a way to escalate that? I'm going to try to sneak into spend the night at my friend's house whose parents don't watch what he does. Because totally
you couldn't have
different.
even gotten into the video store because there was the 18 and up section of the video store that you couldn't even go into.
Right.
And you couldn't even buy a Playboy. There was a whole separate section.
Yeah.
So, I mean, which is a thing for us all to remember is we did a pretty good job back in the day of keeping this stuff away from kids. And now it's just right in front of them. And I think that should give us alarm bells of like, we keep cigarettes away, we keep alcohol away, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet porn is at their fingertips.
We keep allergy medicine away because it could be used as an ingredient in meth. Like I've got to go to the counter to get Sudafed.
You have to show your driver's license to get Sudafed.
Yes. So we've decided it's common in the physical world to create friction between humans and things that could hurt them when it is related to drugs or addiction, when it's related to violence like knives and weapons, when it's related to explicit content like adult and gentleman clubs, right? We create friction, whether it's an ID at the door or a case with a lock or behind the counter to get it, because we're stopping humans from hurting themselves. We need to get to a spot where we're separating kids from adults in digital spaces, and everyone gets really upset because that means maybe some IDs and things, but listen, this is the world we live in. You have to decide, listening to this, and this is a whole separate debate and a whole separate podcast, but we've got to decide as a good and righteous society, are we okay if we protect the privacy of adults to sacrifice the protection of our children.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the tension here that we have to reconcile as a society. And I believe there are all kinds, and the science and the technology is there. There are all kinds of zero-proof, identity-preserving, privacy-protecting ways to separate parents and kids from adults and then make different decisions. And we've just got to get over the idea that those two things are mutually exclusive. That is the only way to achieve the things that we want.
Right.
Is to know who the kids are, know who the adults are, and treat them differently in digital spaces. That means age verifying everything.
Absolutely. Because when I went on Snapchat, what I did was I put in my phone number, I put in a birthday that said I was 12, and it was like, oh, sorry, you're not old enough. So 10 seconds later, I used the exact same phone number, the exact same birthday. I just changed the year by 2 years, and I was 15, and ta-da, you're in. And I know they have the capability to realize, wait a minute, that was the same phone number. Sorry, you're blocked. But they didn't, because of course they don't want to, because come on in, everybody. So they need to do a better job with that. And I know they can. And so I guess we as parents need to just fight for that, right? I mean, like, that needs to be one of the things that we're talking to. I don't know. Who are we talking to about it? The government? The companies? I mean, how do we
yes, and yes.
Put the pressure on?
So I'll say to parents, and I say the same thing that I just today did a 3-hour professional development session with a bunch of teachers at 4 different schools here in Michigan. Own what you can control. So, own what you can control as a parent. You're not going to get Snapchat to change this quickly. You're not going to pass laws quickly. So own what you can control and say no to Snapchat. I mean, my 15-year-old son doesn't have it. He's not going to have it. I've decided that the risks far outweigh the rewards.
Yeah.
I am not, this is hard for some parents to hear. We're not responsible for our kids' happiness.
Yeah.
Like that's not our goal here. My responsibility is his future wellness, in church settings, I'll say his holiness. Like, these are the things that I'm responsible for as his parent. And we'll make a lot of digital decisions based on happiness and what's going to make my kid feel included and a part. Now, I'm not trying to minimize the fact that it really sucks when your kid is the only one in a friend group who doesn't have something. I feel that.
Yeah.
In the same way that your kid feels left out. So I think as parents, then we've got to reach out to those parents and come up with some mutual agreements and create some collective action and do things that are uncomfortable to us, because I think today we know as parents, we often know far less about the parents of the friends of our kids than we used to. And so if we're going to create some collective action and different behaviors, then we got to reach out, sit down, have some coffee with these parents, just have calm conversations about technology. Sometimes they'll agree. They just needed the gift of going second. They needed someone else to say it first. Then they go, oh yeah, I wish you're right. I don't love this. And I don't know a lot of parents who love giving their kids social media. I just don't.
Yeah.
They do it almost because there's 2 bad choices right now as a parent. Yes and no. They're both bad choices.
Yeah.
And the only way to make no a better choice is by finding other parents who join you in no. Then it doesn't feel so bad.
Yeah. That's a great point. But it's like, do I want my kid to feel left out, or do I want them to see something that's going to alter their life forever in a terrible way? Well, guess what? Feeling left out is something that we all need to learn how to deal with eventually anyway, because sometimes you don't get invited to the birthday party and sometimes you don't have Snapchat. But I feel like the alternative of seeing a beheading is, I'm going to choose having my kid be left out. It seems like a lot better choice.
Yep.
But on your website, you guys talk about the different layers of protection that parents can enable, and you have like a pyramid graphic of the different layers. Could you talk a little bit about that? It
requires multiple layers today, Cynthia, because the sophistication of technology is there, right? So especially for things that, again, it's not all pornographic, yet it's still problematic kind of approach to content here. Here now we have AI companions who can be extremely sexual. It's not porn, but they're erotic, very romantic, intoxicating conversations. How do you control these kinds of things? And we actually just shipped a blog post that is all about AI companions and how to wrap layers of protection around those. So yeah, it's 5 layers that we often promote, and it works for different devices. It works for different apps. It works for different kids and different ages and stages. So yeah, if you think of a pyramid, kind of a base that's the widest at the bottom that goes all the way up to kind of the point at the top. And these are ordered in a very intentional order. So it starts with a relationship, right? The things that we're talking about, these persistent, consistent conversations, building digital trust, one conversation at a time, being curious instead of condemning, not freaking out, all these things that build digital trust. That's the relationship down at the bottom. Then on top of that, we build technical control. So you can kind of bucket things into 2 big buckets. There's things that are relational and things that are technical, and we need those in balance with each other. When kids are younger, we rely more on technical controls. I don't want to talk about porn. I don't want to talk about it after you've seen it. I just don't want you to see it, period. Mm-hmm. So you rely more on technical. So then kind of a balance on a teeter-totter here, that there's an inverse relationship. The lower the age, the higher the technical dependence. The higher the age, the higher the relational dependence, right? Okay. So because you're trying to turn out kids who can make decisions on their own. And so you own a few things down, get to their heart, have these hard talks, and make sure they're prepared without your supervision to be doing some things without you. So there's sort of an inverse relationship there between age and then relational and technical solutions. But think of it in layers, and just think of different strengths of these layers depending on whether they're a little kid or an older kid. So relational, and that's more important. It's always important, but it's more important the older the child. Then you get into the Wi-Fi layer, which is the next layer up. And this is critically important in a younger kid, and still important, but more important as a younger kid, still important as an older kid, where you're controlling most of the things that young kids have, Cynthia, depend on Wi-Fi. They don't have a cell plan or a SIM card yet. It's Chromebooks, it's smart TVs, it's PlayStations and Kindles and tablets. And these are the things that are all Wi-Fi dependent. So your router becomes literally the most important digital device in your house if you have young kids. And it's also true for older kids, because what happens when other kids in the neighborhood, because in America, we don't throw away any of our old Apple products. And so they all sit around our house like iPods that are just waiting to be used. They all still work on Wi-Fi, even if they don't have a SIM card or a cell plan. And kids toss them around to their friends. You get your phone taken away, you get punished, you can't use it at night. Here, take this old iPhone from my house, and now you can get on any Wi-Fi network. But, for example, on our network, I have it set up where even if you know the password, like all my kids, my son, he knows the password to our Wi-Fi, but if he tries to bring a new device in, it doesn't matter if he knows the password or not. If my router has never seen the MAC ID, every digital device that gets online in some way has a unique MAC ID, an identifier. And if my router has never seen the MAC ID of a device, even if they get the password right, they can't get in. I have to let them in. And that's an alert that I have on my phone.
And this is actually something new to me. Like, I didn't even know what a router was until like 2 months ago when I started talking to people. So as far as I know, you guys have like a full article on your website about routers and like how to set them up and what they do and everything, right? Because it's pretty technical. So if someone like me is just completely clueless, because I need to set up a router, I haven't done it yet. I mostly just, A, my kids don't really get much screen time, but B, when they do, I tend to be around and I'm physically watching. Sure. But I need to set up a router ASAP, because that will filter out at least some of this stuff, right? That they might see accidentally. Yep.
Accidentally, that's right. And I just wrote all about this on Jonathan Haidt's website, his Substack called After Babel. I created a long post, and the router section is a big part of that. Okay. Especially as it pertains to pornography. But yes, on our website, so people would see there's a whole section on devices on our website, whether you want to control Xboxes or Chromebooks or PlayStations, whatever it is. And there's wireless networks. You can click on that and read the ultimate guide to understanding routers and some of our testing and recommendations. And that's super important. And then on top of that, you have the device layer. And this is where we use software like Bark and Covenant Eyes on devices themselves. This is where we're giving young kids Bark phones and Gab phones instead of iPhones. We're controlling the device layer with both the hardware and the software. Every single digital device that exists in a home should have software or controls on it of some kind, whether it's owned by the adults or the kids, every single device. And then after that, you have the location layer where kids use technology, heck, where adults use technology, controls how we use technology. So there's 5 places we never want kids to be online. That's bedrooms, bathrooms, buses, sleepovers, and grandma and grandpa's house. These are 5 physical places that increase the risk of digital harm. That's where we also talk about something that we call the toxic trio. Whenever young people have technology and are surrounded by bedrooms, boredom, and darkness, that's the toxic trio. Those are things that increase the risk of bad choices, temptation, right? Whether you're 4, 14, or 40. And then at the very top, you have app controls. I mean, YouTube has controls. They suck, but they have them. Snapchat has some controls. Instagram has some controls. And so we enable all of those, but at the very top, and they're the thinnest because we depend on them the least. So think of this as a pyramid. It's all stacked, and it only looks like a pyramid. It works when they're all there. And there's a reason for the order because that indicates dependence and strength. So those are the 5 layers of protection.
That makes a lot of sense. So the website is protectyoungeyes.com.
That's right. And our Instagram and social media handles, just Protect Young Eyes. Type that in anywhere, and you'll be good.
Okay. There's lots and lots of really great resources on the website. You alluded to AI a little bit ago, and so I saw that you went to the White House with some other advocates to discuss AI in education because the president's administration has an AI plan that includes saying that children need to start interacting with AI as early as kindergarten. And what do you see are the primary dangers of kids having access to artificial intelligence?
Well, the primary dangers are AI in the classroom is built on the exact same business model as Snapchat on your iPhone. It's about data. It's about an invasion of privacy. It's about experimenting with something that has proven to be a problem, and we're doing it all over again. I can't believe how quick we are to recommit our sins of the past. Like, we are so ignorant. I just don't understand why in the world we're running towards something that is so unproven. And I say that, but I also know why. And this is what makes the AI conversation really complicated, so much different and so much more complicated than the social media discussion. The social media discussion was more about an issue of belonging. And did I want to belong? Did I want to believe the marketing that it promised me I was going to connect and feel better and all these things, and it never fulfilled it, but it was just kind of me. The problem with the AI is it's geopolitical. And it's not just an issue of connection, it's an issue of power. It's an issue of industry dominance. It's an issue of weapons and technology so that we are better than China, just to call it out. So this is much more complicated and much different. And so, yes, the president has put this out, the call for AI in education, an executive order. Now, here's the thing. Do I want American students to be the best in the world at its understanding and creation and use of AI? Absolutely. Are there things that we can do to ensure that is true? Yes. But an executive order without strict accountability is going to cause schools to recommit all the same sins of Chromebooks and iPads that we have for the past 10 years, which is experimenting in education with them without any of the proof that it actually helped education. And we're doing the same thing all over again. Really, all we're doing is feeding their large language models with our students' data. And we're going to do it all over again. And we're cognitively offloading all of these thinking processes that I'm not against kindergartners in AI and being behind. Here's the problem. We've bought the lie that for a child to understand AI, they have to use it. And that's what we believed with ed tech, that we needed to give them Chromebooks in order to be responsible and prepared for a digital society. That is totally wrong. We should have been teaching them about what it means to be responsible online. We need to be teaching them about the business models. We need to be teaching them about the incentives, teaching them about social media, teaching them about neurology and brain development, so that when they use them, they know what they're using and how to use it well. So should I, in terms of using it as a tool in education and kids typing into prompts and using ChatGPT, absolutely no in elementary school, and probably not in middle school either. I think it's just too unproven. Now, do I want middle schoolers to understand AI literacy and how large language models are created and what we can do to use it responsibly and all? Yes, I want them to understand it, but they don't need to use it to know how to use it well someday.
Right.
And that's what we've got all backwards, is we never required digital literacy before we gave them digital.
Yeah. And it seems it's been very well proven, especially around ed tech, the way you get smarter, more empathetic, astute kids is through one-on-one interactions and reading and actually having self-control and actually having, just all these quote unquote soft skills. And then that makes them leaders and thinkers. And I feel like using ChatGPT is going to do the opposite. It's offloading all of these cognitive exercises to the chatbot. And I guess I personally don't understand how in the world are we going to dominate China if we're just a bunch of people staring at a screen, letting it do our thinking for us. I feel like that's going to be the opposite of what we're wanting. But
it is going to be the opposite. And that's the irony of this. And our kids will be the ones that suffer from that because what are we trying to do? Do we think that the jobs that they're going to inherit are jobs that require them to know how to type a prompt? Like I don't know what we're training them for. It doesn't make any sense. We're not training them for anything other than to get the essay done the fastest.
Yeah. It really doesn't make sense. And as far as I understand, you guys didn't quite get what you were looking for at your White House visit.
Heck no. And that's it. It's about finding the right door, the right department, the right committee, the right person. And so what we have right now, and of course timing won't line up when people listen to this or whatever, but we just need to be aware of this as an executive order. And now what we need to do is we need to make sure that our schools aren't implementing this irresponsibly. So we as parents have a right to know how AI is being used in lessons. We have a right to opt out of how AI is being used. I think that all AI use should be opt-in as parents. I should have the choice to opt in my kid to using it. And so there are templates. If you were to go to our social media profile and kind of click into the different links we have in the profile, there's a letter there that I wrote with Nikki Petrosi at Scrolling to Death that you can copy and paste and send, say, to school leaders or to teachers to say, hey, here's what I think about some of AI and its harms. I'd like to know. And just, if we're not going to convince our government to put the right and type of guardrails in place to prevent harm, then we can start, I think, a little more at the local level to do some of these things and to ensure that we know what tools our children are using.
And then if the government's not going to protect our children from it and it does start infiltrating schools, how can we prepare our kids? What do we say to them of, if you go to school and they want you to come up with your essay idea on ChatGPT, how should we be preparing them for encountering this?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I guess that would prompt, I don't know, in the same way that you discover that anything is happening in the classroom that you don't agree with. What do you do?
Yeah.
And I think our approach needs to be calm, consistent, and persistent, right? So be collaborative until you can't. And whether it's getting phones out of schools or whether it's AI or whether it's less dependence on ed tech, as parents, I think we need to be calm, right? And how we approach consistent, say the same things over and over again, and persistent, or consistent with the right, a set of words, the things you agree with, write down what you agree with and then say it over and over again until you get somebody that hears you. And so work it like anything that you wouldn't agree with in the classroom and make your voice heard. And I'm going to guess there's other parents, especially on this one, that will agree with you. So, another part of this that we recommend is find others, collective action, right? Whether it's on the sidelines, whether it's in the bleachers, wherever, just kind of sprinkle this out there. I bet there's other parents that will nod their heads and go, yeah, I didn't even think about that. I'm concerned about that too. Thanks for bringing that up. And I think we have, a little more power and agency in some of these things than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, I've actually had quite a bit of success talking to the administration at my children's school just about cell phones and policies and ed tech and stuff. And they were very open to hearing what I had to say about it. They actually asked me to try to find research for them because they're so busy. They don't have the time to be doing all the research. So I gave them a ton of research about phones in schools. And this year they did change their policy, and phones have to stay in backpacks or lockers. And I was so excited because they really were responsive. And so I would tell people, just let them know what you're thinking. They need to know what parents want and what parents are thinking, and do it in the nicest way you possibly can. But I guess then this is just a multi-level approach of like letting the school know that you don't want AI being used, but then letting your kids know, I suppose, why you don't think AI is a good idea and why, it's making them dumber to let AI do all their work for them. And then maybe say, if you're finding that you guys are being told to use this in class, let me know. And then I suppose perhaps then once we know that it's being used in the classroom, we could ask to opt out.
Yeah, and that's the some of the information that's in the letter that you could find on our website or with Nikki has some of that language. Like, I think we should be able to opt out, and that's a conversation to have with schools, whether it's related to ed tech, an app, Prodigy, whatever it might be that we don't agree with. Like, what are the options if I'm wanting to opt out of certain uses of technology for different reasons? What are my options? And ask that question. There should be options.
Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody wants to know more information, is the best place to go to protectyoungeyes.com? And what kind of resources do you guys offer?
So that's exactly right. And if you were to go there, you would find, long form posts that we've written. We have app reviews, device reviews. We have information, the research you referred to. You can go to that part of our website and there's a PDF you can download with all kinds of research related to phone-free schools or removing technology from the classroom. There are some really interesting things that are happening on that front, like a whole public school district over in North Carolina where the Board of Education created a resolution asking teachers to go back to some more physical paper ways of educating.
Yay.
Right? And so some of those resources are there to download, and ironically, very active on social media, trying to use it for as much good as possible to the extent that Instagram lets me. And yeah, all the more standard places that, you would want. We have a private community too called The Table. Parents can come to The Table to get their tech questions answered. Abby on my team is a mom, really technically savvy who answers people's questions in The Table all the time. Think of it as like one-on-one Geek Squad sort of tech support. If you don't understand routers or you don't know how to have a conversation about pornography or whatever it is, Abby is there to answer those questions. And it has a cost. It's $12 a month, but think about what you're getting for $12 a month. You're getting Abby to help you anytime with any question that you've got. And plus, you can use it for a week for free and see if you like it. So those are things we want to make available.
Very cool. And then you do all sorts of like trainings and talks with schools and churches and places like that, right?
That's right. So there are 6 of us on the team that do presentations that I've trained up, whether it's speaking to students or to parents. So we're actually 2 organizations, or we have a sister organization that's a nonprofit called Better Tech, the Better Tech Project. And that's what we do with students, where we want not anti-technology, but we want better uses of technology, inviting kids into what that looks like. We have a dream, sort of a vision, that if 1 million kids decrease their screen time 30 minutes every day, that would be 10 billion minutes.
Wow.
Like what could we see in teenagers if they were to reclaim 10 billion minutes of life from the algorithm, right? So that's what we do with presentations to them. We were just in 1, 2, 3 different schools in Alabama and New Orleans and down in Louisiana this week, talking to students about that better use of technology, high schools and so forth. So that's kind of, yes for parents, yes for educators, but also we want to make sure the kids know how to navigate these spaces too.
Very cool. Well, the last question I love to ask people kind of ties into this thought that Jonathan Haidt talks about a lot, that part of it is that we need to get kids off of their screens, offline, but we need to give them more independence and free play in the real world as kind of the other side of the coin. And if you'd be willing to share, can you think of one of your favorite memories from when you were a kid or a teen when you were allowed to do something totally independent without your folks or without adults around?
Well, I remember the very first thing that comes to mind. So I was big into baseball cards, which was pretty common back in the 1980s. And the neighborhood that I lived in Lansing, Michigan, had a pharmacy. It was Glass Pharmacy. I'll never forget the name of it. But it was a bike ride away. It was just far enough away. It was probably as a kid, distance, it could have been 50 miles away as a kid, it seemed like, but it was maybe 3 miles from our house or something. And I remember my friends, Brian and Christy and Eric, they were allowed to ride their bikes to Glass Pharmacy, and I wasn't. And I was like, dang, that really stunk. But then came the day when Mom said, you can ride your bike. And I'll never forget that ride. It was like the most glorious bike ride where I got to, because I had enough for 2 packs of baseball cards, with the allowance that I had when you could, get cards fairly inexpensive. And so that was such a big deal. I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember there was a grocery store right next to it and gas station. It was out kind of on this main road, Grand River, that headed into Michigan State University. So it was kind of a busy, but they let us ride our bikes. And I'll never forget that. I don't know it was elementary school. That's all I remember. I don't know exactly what age I was, but riding the bike to Glass Pharmacy was kind of one of these
deal, and it's
summertime rites of passage.
Stuck in your memory, and you probably felt so old and so responsible. And
it's amazing. On my blue bike, I can still remember it.
Oh, fabulous. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And so thank you for talking. I hope everybody, if they have any sort of questions, goes to the website and we can, everybody can continue the conversation with their kids and with their school administrators and everything. And just thank you for everything you're doing in this space.
Thank you, Cynthia. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Screen Less, Play More podcast. If you like what you hear, please tell your friends and please rate and review us on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, wherever you listen. That really helps other people find us and helps us get the word out. A special thanks to WJD, who does all of our IT, and Neil Penninger, who composed our theme music. Please also check out screenlessplaymore.com for research about kids and tech, some ideas on getting kids outside playing and away from screens, book recommendations, and so much more.